A bad therapy experience can really leave a scar, because if you are in a difficult place of deciding that you need to see a psychologist, then having a bad therapy experience comes at a really bad time. So it's really important to choose the right therapist. It's important to choose the right person for you. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips to finding the right therapist and how to identify the right therapist for you. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you the secret ingredient, which research has proven actually makes the difference whether a therapy is successful or not. Tip number 1 is to contact your medical insurance provider. You know, that may seem like a weird suggestion, but therapy is expensive. If that is important to you and your personal financial situation, then you need to check with your medical service provider and find out if psychiatry and psychotherapy is in fact covered under your plan. And if it is covered in your plan, what are the stipulations? For example, a lot of medical insurances insist that you see a psychiatrist and get a referral first. Some might accept a referral from a GP. Others will just allow you to claim directly, but they have a limit on the amount per year that you can claim or the number of sessions. So obviously these are like really important things to know. Another thing to ask your medical insurance is whether they stipulate in which area your therapist should be. Most therapists actually work online, so theoretically you are not limited to the area in which you live, but your medical insurance might insist that you see a therapist within a certain network coverage of some kind. Tip number 2 is do a proper search. So ask around your network of contacts, talk to your local doctor, ask your friends and family, search Facebook groups and see if you can find recommendations. What do people say? Of course, you can and should also do a Google search, because although not every therapist has a website, most of us do. Tip number 3, once you've made a short list or a long list of therapists in your area that you might like to see, or therapists that you might like to work online with, the next thing to do is to check their license. Again, this matters if you're going to claim from medical insurance, because no medical insurance is going to pay for an unlicensed mental health practitioner, for example, like a life coach. So that is important for claiming purposes. It's also important because a license offers you and the therapist a certain amount of protection. That is because a therapist who is licensed is registered with a specific board, has passed exams in order to be able to register with that board, and is required to keep up a certain amount of continued professional development in order to maintain their license. You also have the assurance that they have the qualifications, training and skills that they say they have. And if worse comes to worse and something goes wrong, you have some recourse. So that is not to say that you should never see someone who doesn't have a license. Some life coaches, or in fact psychologists who may not have a license in a particular state for some reason, may be absolutely excellent at what they do. And this is where reputation comes into play. For some people, therapy fees are completely out of reach, and for others, therapy fees are well within what you can afford. And therapy is an investment in yourself. However, if therapy fees are too high, there are often other ways of finding therapy at a much lower price. For example, some therapists offer sliding scale, they offer some kind of discounts. These are things that are worth inquiring into, but that comes later. Another thing about a licensed mental health practitioner is that they are governed by a code of conduct and ethical guidelines. Tip number 4 is to examine their bio with care, and that includes the photograph. You know, it's not about whether your therapist is good looking or not. It's about whether their face is a face that you feel like you could feel comfortable with and that you could talk to. So when you look at their photo, check in with yourself and ask yourself, what is my gut response to this person? Do I feel like I could be comfortable with them? And if so, then continue. If you really don't feel comfortable, it's probably not going to be good for developing a rapport with this therapist when you actually start seeing them. Read their bio carefully. Ask yourself, what is this person like? What is this therapist like? What are their interests? How many years of experience do they have? What did they study? Where do they say their expertise lies? Each of us has a deep inner awareness of what we need and what we feel comfortable with. Your gut instinct is something that you should trust, especially when it comes to choosing a therapist. Therapy is a highly intimate, individual experience. It's not about whether this therapist was a great therapist for other people. It's about whether they're going to be a great therapist for you. Basically, you want to ask yourself, do I vibe with this person? Tip number 5 is reach out. You have nothing to lose by reaching out. Make a phone call, send an email, send a WhatsApp, depending on what your therapist uses and what you prefer to use. And see how you feel after you've made contact. So for example, how long did they take to respond to you? Or do they offer some kind of initial phone consultation where you can just have a little bit of a chat and see if you feel like you'll be able to talk to this person? This is your opportunity to ask questions. If you want to know more about the therapist's experience or how they work, or this is the time to ask about fees and times and appointments and how long sessions last and how many sessions are typically recommended by your therapist. And this will give you a lot of clues about what it's going to be like to work with this person. The kind of overall rule is that therapists respond within 24 hours. But that depends. It varies from therapist to therapist. It doesn't matter exactly how they work or how they respond. It matters how you feel about how they work or how they respond. You need to check in with your gut again at this point and see if your impressions of this therapist have changed and if you feel more comfortable about seeing them. Therapists of all approaches are very used to receiving client inquiries. We get a lot of them. So they have a way of responding and they have a way of approaching setting up that initial appointment, and going through that process with somebody will give you a lot of clues about what it's going to be like to work with them. Finally, I want to tell you about the secret ingredient to therapy that many people don't actually realize. And that is that research has shown that what makes therapy work, the true ingredient to a successful therapy, is the relationship. It is not the therapist's approach. It is not their years of experience. It is not their specific skills. Although, of course, these do count. What really, really matters is the relationship between you and your therapist. A good relationship leads to a good therapy. In my next video, I'm going to talk about the different approaches to therapy and why you might prefer one over another. I really hope that you liked this video and that you found it useful. If so, please hit the subscribe button and the like button, and I hope to see you next time.